Hi, this is Dan Heisman, Philly Tutor, and this is the Improve Your Chess video series for ICC members. In today's video, we're going to look at an over-the-board game. I'm not sure the time limit. It was a slow game. It was submitted to me by a former student who said, this game is gold for your instruction. All right, I looked at the game, and I think one of the things we want to look at during the game is not just the tactics. I think the black's rated 1100, white might be around the same level, but also their kind of disregard for principles, the kind of basic things you learn when you first start to play. And you read over some annotated master games, and they tell you, in general do this, in general do that. Principles are an important part of the game. Generally, I tell my students, if there's only one principle that applies to a move and there's no tactics, then usually you just follow it. You don't spend a lot of time looking for exceptions to the principles. If you're going to follow the principles, you can do them relatively quickly. If you're going to make an exception, you got to play slow. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to make exceptions to principles while you're playing really fast. It just doesn't make any sense. All right, I have no time stamping on this game, so we don't know how much time they took. Well, let's take a look at the game. White opens up d4. Black plays d5, white plays c4. And now the main three moves are all pawn moves. Queen's Gambit declined, Slav, and Queen's Gambit accepted. Black plays Queen's Gambit accepted. As I teach my students, when you're a d4, c4 player, if black either takes the pawn or plays c6 and threatens to take it and guard it, then you want to bring out your king knight first. And if he just plays e6, then you want to bring out your queen knight first to pressure d5. So here, the main move is to play knight f3. White plays knight c3, not a terrible move, but there's some lines here where black can try to hold the pawn, and when white plays a4, black will play b4 and hit the knight, and it makes it harder for white to cause problems for black. All right, so here, if black wants to try to punish white for knight c3, he could play like, c6 or a6 or something like that. Instead, he plays the very strange move, bishop d7. All right, so what principle does this violate? Well, it violates knights before bishops. It also violates the principle that says don't put your pieces where they block your other pieces unless there's a good reason. Well, the bishop on d7 blocks the queen from hitting the central squares and takes away one of the knight's possibilities on b8. So it kind of discoordinates the army a little bit. All right, computer says here maybe e3, threatening to play bishop c4 is the best move. White plays the natural e4. And now the one advantage of having played bishop to d7 is you can guard this pawn because you can play b5 now, and knight takes b5 is not possible. So that's the only move that would make any sense here. Otherwise, we'd have to assume that black really didn't have a reason for playing bishop d7. So black plays e6, just giving the pawn back on c4. Also blocking in that bishop just moved to d7. So that move makes no sense at all. If he's not going to play b5, then he shouldn't have played bishop d7. So white, of course, takes his pawn and gets it back. And now white has a pretty big advantage. He's got the center, and black doesn't really have any pressure on it. Black's break move here is going to have to be c5. And black plays knight f6. And it makes sense here that white should play like knight f3 and castle. That would be a very good continuation. Castling's always a good idea. Instead, white plays bishop g5. Well, there's a couple principles involved here. There's nothing wrong with bishop g5, but it is a loose piece, LPDO. It also is bishops before knights. If the knight had come out first, the bishop wouldn't be loose. It would be guarded. Also, it develops a piece on the side you're probably not going to castle first. And another principle says, develop the pieces on the side that you want to castle.